What is going on, y'all? This is the debut of the Rock Hot Takes podcast. My name is Daryl. Welcome to you from wherever you are, whenever you are. Um, I know you guys have been following, some of you have been following, and I really appreciate on the Rock Hot Takes um, Reels channel, Instagram, all the things. And so we've been getting some pretty decent feedback. So I was like, well, why don't we just start a full episode podcast and talk about some of the things that we've been posting. So I'm very, very excited about this. So this first episode, again, Rock Hot Takes, and also To Hell with the Podcast is another channel that we do. It's mostly on the world of Striper, which might not be your jam, but hey, if it is, come check us out over there as well. We're up to about 40 episodes over there. So um, that is definitely a thing that we like to play with, me and my boy Tim. We usually do that about once a week. The reels on the Rock Hot Takes come every day. And so I was going to do a full length episode on this channel once a week. So we're just cranking out content. So, this is stuff that I'd love to talk about. So, anyways, so today this first episode, I might have bitten off more than I can chew, to be honest. But this first episode, I wanted to talk about an album that's very close to my heart. I listen to it probably once a month at least. The record is Queensryche, Operation Mindcrime. So I think I've gotten all the stuff out of the way that I need to get out of the way, so I can just jump right in. This isn't going to be a long episode because it is the first one. So I wanted to get in here and just kind of talk about some things that this record means to me, and just some technical details and that kind of stuff. But for you old heads, I'm 50 plus years old. So I was in the middle of the hair metal, all that stuff in the 80s. That was prime for me. So let's talk about Queensryche just as a band for a second. So this was way before Seattle took off, right? So we're in the middle of, when this record came out, we're in the middle of, well, not in the middle. We're kind of on the back end of the hair metal stuff. So this is 1988. So we're kind of on the back end of the hair metal stuff, right? So we got Hairspray, we got Aquanet everywhere. We're, like I say, we're kind of on the back end. So we're signing some bands that might kind of suck because everybody's on the strip trying to get their, trying to flyer everywhere. Everybody's getting signed, and we're starting to get some stuff, we're kind of on the back end of Poison and Motley and Warrant and, all the big guys. So we got these guys from Washington, not even Seattle. We got guys from Bellevue. Okay. So, and if you look at this record just on its face, and I'm not a lyric person. I play a couple of instruments, and fortunately, I married a woman that is very much a lyrical girl. She will dig into the words of a song and break it down. I'm a little more shallow. I don't know what that says about me, but but this is one of the records that I really do. If you break this record down like lyrically, if you wrote it, you could make this freaking thing into like a Tom Clancy novel if you really wanted to. I mean, we got corruption, we got political assassinations, we got priests and kids and nuns, and I mean, it's all in here, man. I know this is one of the reasons that I love it is because of the lyrics, and I can't say that about a lot of records. Great songwriting. I mean, ridiculous songwriting. And so, props, to Jeff Tate, Chris DeGarmo, Peter Minch, co-writer. Also, I know I'm throwing a lot out there, but there's a lot. I don't want to talk for 2 hours either. So Peter Collins also. And if you don't know who Peter Collins is, any of you Rush fans out there, you might know who Peter Collins is. producer on Power Windows, this is going to be blasphemy. I love the Power Windows record. I love a lot of Rush stuff. I'm actually going to see Rush here in the next couple months for their old guy tour with the new female drummer, which dang, dude, I am really stoked to see this lady because she makes, I don't know how you can make Neil Peart stuff look easy, but she's kind of doing it. As a drummer, I'm really stoked to see her because I really do think she's doing it proper, man. But anyway, so this record it was kind of mind blowing during this period because it's like you got this era of rock going on where you still have kind of the bubblegummy stuff that was on the Strip, and Queensryche was kind of making you. I mean, we had the first couple records. Excuse me. You know, you had Walk in the Shadows and Queen of the Reich, and those songs were. I love Walk in the Shadows because Queensryche to me has always had these really funky production elements, like some of the harmonies, because they'll do this weird stuff where they'll have the melody, but then they'll have this weird minor, and I'm sorry if I get too funky technically, but they'll have this weird minor harmony where they'll shift it down and it sounds, but it hits and it hits in the right way, and they do that a lot on this record as well. And that's another production element that I give credit to Peter Collins for putting that in there. But I always like the same reason where I love Alice in Chains. They just have some of these weird ass little. Sorry, I apologize for the cursing. I have a bad mouth. I'm trying to clean it up on this, but I apologize in advance. Kids, don't be like me. But anyway, but yeah, I credit the production on some of this stuff because it's kind of unique. So I love this kind of stuff. But so yeah, it's a very interesting sound, and they've always had that because freaking Jeff Tate is he's a monster. I mean, classically trained vocalist, just really, really tight musicianship. Chris DeGarmo, who's off fixing airplanes now or something. I really, there's a couple of guys that out of this era that I wish were still in it. Vito Bratta being one of them, Chris DeGarmo being another one. They just kind of disappeared. And hey, man, if that's your thing, then cool. But this record was a slow burn. I mean, they had a few hits. I mean, there wasn't really a radio hit, right? They had like I Don't Believe in Love, but there wasn't like they had MTV hits, but there wasn't like radio hits, right? And so this thing was a very slow burn. It peaked at like number 50 on the 200 on Billboard, and it was cool. But it took over a year for this thing to hit platinum. So it was more of a word of mouth thing than a sales thing. So, but it was a concept record, right? I mean, concept records, aside from The Wall, right, that spent like 8,000 years on the charts. So it was really, when you look at concept records, aside from The Wall, you're not going to find another concept record that spent a ton of time on Billboard. So this was, not a thing that was going to blow up, right? It's not going to be a freaking Taylor Swift record, right? But it did, and they toured on it for a while. I mean, they were on the Def Leppard tour. I think I saw them like 3 times with Def Leppard on the Hysteria tour. So, but they toured on it for a long time, and they also released the Live Crime on, that was a DVD release. So they actually did the entire, and that was the first time I can remember a band doing a record like how they do now. They do the whole record like front to back, right? And so you can go see, God, just pick one. I'll pull one out of my hat. James Addiction doing their first record, front to back. So there's a million of them. You can pick one. Seven Dust comes to mind too. I've seen them do a bunch of stuff, but it was one of the first times and that was early '90s where they did the entirety of Operation Mindcrime, and they went on tour, and the tour was Operation Live Crime, but they also released it as a DVD, and they had the big screens, and again, this was early '90s. They were doing the big screens in the back, and it was like you're watching a movie, but the band was playing the whole album in front of you, and it was really, really cool. And so they were doing that, and now we have, pushed to current times. Now we have Jeff Tate doing Queensryche, and then we have Queensryche, who owns the name, doing Queensryche, and they don't really want to touch any of the old stuff, which is unfortunate because they do have like Michael Wilborn still in the band. Scott Rock. They don't. Queensryche, the band that owns the name, does not really have any of the original members anymore. So that's kind of sad. They still sound great. I mean, not taking anything away from them. I've seen them recently, and they're really good. But they really want to stick to the newer-ish material. So they're not really playing. They've played Eyes of a Stranger. I've seen that, but they're not really playing any of the newer stuff. Or excuse me, the older stuff. My bad. But they still sound good. So I'm not going to knock them. But they're doing, just it seems like they're staying away from the older material, and for good or for bad, that's fine. It's I don't know if that's a conscious decision. I assume that it is, but who knows? But yeah, I mean, there's some funky things on here though. It's like it they had a process going in that if you think about time and temperature on this thing. So we're in the middle of for you new heads, for you kids out there, we're in the middle of Reagan era politics. So we still got I think the wall is still up in Russia. So the wall hasn't come down yet, I don't believe. No, it hasn't, because I was still in high school. So no, we still have Reagan era politics, all this disillusionment with the government. And you know what? And I'm not going to get too political here, but we still have a lot of the same ish that we were dealing with during the time of this record that we're dealing with today. I mean, you still got, government corruption, and not that that's probably ever going to go away, but there's a lot of topics in this record that are still top of mind, and that sucks. But I mean, like I say, I'm not going to get crazy political on this, but some of this stuff is still very top of mind, and that stinks. But hey, it is what it is. But there's some other funky things on here too, because I mean, there's one of the points on here is like, I Don't Believe in Love almost got cut from this record, which is crazy. Because it's one of the stronger songs on this record, and it was like it's one of their closers. I mean, and it was a MTV hit. So I'm not sure whose bright idea was. I think it was probably too poppy, I guess, maybe too simple. I'm not sure. I don't know what the thought process. I just saw that was a quote. So yeah, I don't know why you would think that would be a good idea to cut that song, because I think it's one of the stronger songs, but it's a simpler song on the record overall. But another thing too, before I get into some more of the other stuff, but this is a progressive metal record, and so what I mean by that is that there's some spacing in here. Like, you have you got your track 1, track 2, track 3, but you've also got some spacing in here, right? So you got DeGarmo writing some very specific instrumental stuff, right? So looking for my 22. There's like toward the end, especially Empty Room, and that's a Tate DeGarmo kind of thing. But it's not really Tate singing like a specific song. He's doing like some spatial vocal things, and it's really there's some really pretty stuff on here musically, and so, but it's not like a sing song, right? It's just they're playing around with melody, they're playing around with kind of some spatial stuff, and it's really nice. But it's like if you think about bands like say like Dream Theater, or even like um you can go kind of a step further, like Avenged Sevenfold. They have some elements of that, but it it does have a lot of elements of progressive rock, which in the 80s was not really a thing. So they kind of did bring that forward. Um, there wasn't a lot of that in the 80s. So, but just the skill of the musicians and the songwriting ability it was kind of next level for that period of time. So, um, a little bit of flowers on that. So that's something I always liked about them, because it seems like they thought a lot about what they were putting into the songs themselves and the record as a whole. I don't think they thought about um, the individual songs in general. I mean, I know they did. That's a bad statement. They weren't trying to make every song a hit. They were trying to make the album um, as a whole a piece, right? So as they were constructing all the songs, I think from as I'm listening to it, I'm thinking, well, how does this particular piece fit into the whole of the record? And you have to listen to this album as its entirety, not because, like I say, there's no hits on here. I mean, not really. So you have to listen to this as an entire piece, not just as track one, track two, track three, right? So, and that's another reason why I really like this record, because that's freaking hard to do. Because you're basically, like I say, you're basically writing a story. So that's really, really hard to do. So, so yeah, I mean, um, and another point on this, I mean, I think if you talk to Queensryche fans, this is the record they'll point to. If you ask, um, like rock fans, it's like, okay, what's your favorite What's your favorite Queensryche song / album? They're going to point to Empire. They're going to point to Silent Lucidity. They're going to point to the song Empire, because those were the songs that were on the radio. I mean, Silent Lucidity, obviously, but I mean that's the thing. It's like people they pick their favorites, obviously, but it's like this album. If you talk to a Queensryche fan, this is the album that made them legendary. There's so much stuff around this. I mean, you got comic books, you got the DVDs, because this is a story. It's not just track 1, 2, and 3, right? This is a complete package. It's not just a couple of songs. And that's why it's so famous for this particular band. And so I don't know. I think I'm just I don't know. I'm not trying to be a cheerleader for this particular record, but I kind of am. Cuz I've never been a huge fan. I like a lot of the songs on Empire, but when I get to Mindcrime, Mindcrime 2, which yes, there was a Mindcrime 2. Um, it was made like, golly, I want to say 15 or 16 years after Mindcrime. I hold on, I think I can pull this. Yeah, 18 years later. My bad. It was fine, but when you set the bar as high as you do for the first Mindcrime, it's you're gonna that's a hard That's a hard row to hoe, as they say. Wow, I screwed that up. But yeah, I mean, this is a record that makes a band legendary. And oh my gosh, I totally forgot the 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 whole thing. The whole title that I'm of this podcast is albums that make bands legendary. And so the reason, the whole premise for this is I want to do records that I feel like make bands legendary, or at least break, not necessarily albums that break bands, but albums that make you think about bands. It's like, okay, you think about Queen of the Reich, think about, it's like we're almost there, we're almost there, and then they hit that next record that makes them, okay, this is the album that breaks them, you know, um, you know, and not even like, may not even be sales wise, right? It's just, you can think about, if we talk about like something like Motley Crue, so we're going from Shout of the Devil to Dr. Feelgood, sales wise, that that's a record that is going to be, yeah, it broke them. But I mean, because Shout the Devil was a great record, but when you talk about sales, Dr. Feelgood was off the freaking chart. This wasn't the same for Queensryche, but it's still the record that every Queensryche fan talks about as the record that's like, yeah, that's my favorite Queensryche record. If you are a Queensryche fan, so anyway, I digress. But I mean, I think I also think too that the production wise, I think having Peter Collins in the mix, because if we think about Rush, and I'm not going to be on the Rush tip very long, but if you think about Rush in general, they have a lot of visuals, and and the lyrics, they have a lot of stuff that makes you think, right? There's not like simple poppy Rush songs. They all have like you know some kind of meaning to them, because Neil Peart writes heady songs, and then they always have some kind of uh, visual element to them. They always have. So I think that kind of brought them into like a different conceptual element for this record, and I think that helped them a lot. Um, and one of the quotes that I got from, well, I didn't interview the guy, but one of the quotes that I saw from Peter Collins is like, he pushed them not to over explain anything and to make the listener lean into the story and make them pay attention to what's going on. And I think that's a great, I think that's, if they intentionally did that, I think that's great, because I mean, if you're putting some of the onus on the listener to get in and actually pay attention to what you're doing, I think that's great, because I think part of the problem with just music in general at this point, it's just a lot of it's just bubblegum. So you don't really have to like pay attention to anything. You're just like, okay, cool, blah 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 blah. But if you are actually putting effort into what you're putting on, well, say putting on paper or putting on wax, whatever you're putting it on. Um, I think if you're making the listener, because if you're making the listener have to go back and listen to it more than once, I think that's a good thing, because if you get it down to where, okay, there's this layer, but then there's this other layer. If you're making the listener have to go back and check it out more than once, then yeah, that means there's more to it than just some bubblegum, or some just ABG chord progression kind of thing, and it's not just something that's easy that you can just bounce in and out, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, sometimes I do need something that I can try to wrap my head around. And I think for music for music fans that are really music fans and not just like casuals, I think that's the word I want to use. That if you're not a casual and you want to like get into kind of get in the weeds a little bit with it, which is kind of usually where I land if I'm like if it's a Saturday morning and everybody in the house is still asleep, that's usually where I land. And I want to listen to, I don't know, maybe I want to listen to that guitar piece like a little more closely, or analyze, just analyze a little more, I guess is the word. But yeah, I think the Rush connection kind of maybe put them in a different headspace, maybe. So, but I don't know. I guess at the end of the day, I think the Collins connection really did help them, and I do think between Tate and DeGarmo, with the change in producer, I think that combination was really something that helped push this to kind of what it became, because I mean it to me it's definitely their best record. Maybe not most the most commercially successful, but just meat on the bone, kind of, there's so much there. And for me, and this is just personal preference, um I like bands like Dream Theater, Animals as I like progressive metal, like Animals as leaders. I like guys that can get up there and just blow the freaking roof off the place with their musical talent, which there's a lot of it here. But but yeah, like I say, I like analyzing what's going on within the song. I mean, you got choirs in the song. I mean, you got all kinds of stuff going on, but you have to pay attention. So I don't know. For the old heads, I'm probably not telling you anything that you don't already know if you like this record. For the new heads, um, I don't know. You got to listen to this record more than once to kind of get what's going on. So I'm just gonna, you know, like I say, since this is the first episode um, of albums, yeah, that's it. Albums that made the band. That's the tag. So I think this is going to be a wrap. This is going to be a tight one. I just kind of wanted to get in and get out, and but that being said, this album has a very big spot in my heart as far as stuff that I grew up on. So please, 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 um, this is going to go everywhere. So any feedback would be great, since this is our first kind of full length episode. So anything you guys have to say, um, rock hot takes on YouTube, and well, hell, everywhere else. Sorry, didn't mean to curse again. But yeah, so anything you guys have to say, I would love the feedback. So but yeah, Queensryche, Operation Mindcrime. Love it, love it, love it. So yeah, guys. So I don't think I have much else to say except I love this record and I would love any kind of feedback. So keep up with us on the Rock Hot Takes on YouTube and everywhere else. And well, actually, I just created a Facebook group today, so it's Rock Hot Takes on Facebook as well. So, yep. All right, man. Y'all be safe out there. Bye.